Welcome to Passionate and Practical, the art of dreaming, doing, and serving. I'm your host, Lexi, and today I'm going to be talking about marriage. And if you're watching on Instagram or YouTube, then you're going to see my eyes go back and forth because I'm doing this all in one shot. So Instagram, you're getting the kind of shortened version of this. YouTube, you'll get the full version, and Spotify and iTunes, you'll get the audio version. So thanks so much for joining me. I am so passionate about marriage. I just did my first email list send out thing, campaign, whatever you want to call it. I sent it out to about 30 people that asked to be a part of this challenge. And so it's all about 30 days to strengthening your marriage. So I thought that this Friday, as you're listening and as this episode comes out, that we could just talk about marriage. And I think oftentimes marriage is painted in a terrible way. Sometimes it's because you had experience with maybe your parents are divorced, or you've seen families divorced, or you have a close friend that's been divorced, or you yourself has been divorced. There is a lot going against marriage in our world. I think it's like 60% of marriages fail. And so this is something that I believe and I strongly feel like God has kind of called me and my husband to be a voice in this area and just talk about how A, marriage is awesome, B, it doesn't have to be hard, and C, like, if you want a thriving marriage, you have to be intentional. So those are some of the things I want to talk about today, and just want to give you some tools and tips. You know, I'm only 2.5 years in, so you might think that that discredits me, but I've seen so much fruit in our relationship, and I truly believe that one of those things, first and foremost, is the fact that my parents love each other. I've never seen a couple that is so madly in love than my own parents. So I'm so thankful for them because they modeled marriage well. And Blake, same thing. He has parents that are in love and they adore each other, and they have 5 children together and they raise them together, and they love each other more today than they did 30 years ago, which is so cool. And so I believe we're set up for success, and we're going to continue in that. But guess what? If you did not have that modeled for you, it's not an excuse, and it's not a reason why you shouldn't work hard at your marriage. So I just want to encourage you. I want you to feel like you're spurred on to make changes, and even if it's a little tweak. I once heard this quote that said, if you're 1 degree off or 1 degree in the right direction, it might not look like a lot, but once you go miles and miles or years and years, that 1 degree really makes a difference. And I totally butchered that, but as you know, if you've been following me for any amount of time, I am not great at quotes and not great at kind of telling you visuals and things like that. So thanks for bearing with me. Let's jump right in. Let's talk about marriage. Let's talk about why it's so important to be intentional with your marriage. First off, if you wanted to get the job of your dreams, you had to be intentional about going to school for this certain thing, and then you had to be intentional about crafting your resume and your cover letter, and then once you got that job, then you had to be intentional to do things to be the right fit for the job, right? So we do this in our careers, we do this in our friendships, we do this in so many areas of our lives. So why don't we do it in marriage? So and the question is, I don't know. And I want to kind of be a part of a movement or a community that really believes in marriage and really believes in thriving marriage. So the first thing, like I said, is be intentional. The simple question, what does your spouse appreciate when you do it for them? For me, my husband, Blake, he loves when he comes home to a clean kitchen or dinner that's being cooked and prepared for him. I love to cook. I don't love to clean. So there's something in there that has to do with being more of a servant to my husband. And then the other has to do with me doing something that I love to do for my family. And so I think that that's kind of the way that it works, right? I think that there's oftentimes we get to do things to serve our spouse or our kids or our friends that we love to do. But then there's some stuff that we don't love to do, but we love to do it because we know how much joy it brings our significant others. So So those are some things that I try to do, and I'm not perfect at it. And I think that it's kind of like working out, once you get in the groove of working out daily and getting into a fitness routine, it's so much easier to work out. And so cleaning is the same way, cooking is the same way, kind of forming those habits. And so whatever it is that your spouse loves, that you do for them, do more of that. It's just that simple. And then, how do you show appreciation to them? This is Blake's biggest thing. I think that so many men, they just want to know that what they're doing matters for their family. They work so hard to provide. If your husband is a provider, I get to stay at home because my husband goes to work. And so I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so grateful for that. And so sometimes all he wants to hear is that we appreciate him and that we know how hard he's working. And so sometimes it's just simple words to let them know how much they mean to you. And then laugh together. This is such a fun one, right? Because sometimes, especially if you have children, it gets hard, and it's like ships passing in the night. It's like, whoa, do we just coexist, or do we even know each other anymore? Are we even dating each other? So laughing together is so important because it just shows, oh wow, this is something we connect over. This is something we both find humor in, and we can just kind of shake off the hard day that we've had. So for Blake and I, it's watching Modern Family. We think that show is so genius. It was written so well, and the humor is just it kind of like cuts straight to the heart because it's like, oh wow, that's like so what society is going through right now, or so what my family's going through, and it's just really, really unique and funny humor. So we love to do that. Find what you love to do that makes you laugh together. And then next, look pretty for him. I think that as moms, and if you heard my episode last week with Jamie, as moms, we can often check out in this category, and so often I do, because I'd rather, be playing and spending that extra time with my son than getting ready for the day for my spouse, and it's just a lame excuse, honestly. It's like, I feel better when I look better, and when I throw some makeup on. I don't have to, be head to toe and wear heels because I'm at the house. Why am I going to do that? But I could, get out of my pajamas, brush my teeth, these things that take care of myself a little bit so that when my husband does come home, he feels like, oh wow, you're just as beautiful as the day that I met you. And I always want to strive for that. And our bodies change after we have kids. And I'm not saying that you have to look exactly like you did when you started dating. I'm just saying put some effort into it. It'll go a long way. In fact, my friend Jamie, from the podcast last week, go ahead and listen to it. She talks about how her personal styling business has given 4 babies to 4 different families. So like she has clients that use her to do personal styling, and they've had babies because of it. So if that doesn't tell you that the way that we look impacts our marriage, like I don't know what does. So anyways, enough about that one. Spice it up with sexy time. This kind of goes hand in hand, right? So if we look good, we feel good. If we feel good, we might feel sexy. If we feel sexy, we might feel like having sexy time. And the reason I call it sexy time is because it's social media and we're online, and I don't want to, get too in the details about it, but that's kind of my way of being able to talk about it without going, explicit. So yes, connect with your spouse. Intimacy is so important, and I might even go on a limb and say that is often more important to men than it is to women. Like sometimes I feel like I could give or take, and that is not the same. It's not the same on the other side. So I want to be intentional about pouring into my marriage in the way of our intimacy. So ladies, like if you're having trouble with this, then you're not alone. And it's just, I heard it in this book one time that said, if you want to enjoy having sex, do it every day for 30 days. And then the more you do it, the more you'll want to do it. And so it's kind of like a habit that kind of comes along with it. And so I think it's worth a try. And I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised. And Instagram, I'm going to turn you off because we're almost at 10 minutes for Instagram TV. Excuse me. And so, anyways, just make it a priority. Make it part of your lifestyle. And obviously there's times like when you've just had a baby, or, when you're not feeling well, and certain times where you can't make it a part of your regular schedule. But I think that it's important to, make it a part of your weekly routine. I don't know the magic number, but somewhere between 2 and 5 times a week, maybe. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know what works for you, but I would challenge you to put yourself in that range. And I think that your spouse would really appreciate it. And moving on. So set goals together. This is so important. Blake and I love to set goals together. Every Saturday, we have a meeting. We sit down, we talk for maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending on how lazy our Saturday is. And we talk about what was good that week. We talk about what didn't go well that week, what we have on our calendar, and we talk about just some things that we want to accomplish. And then we talk about meal prepping. And so we have started to prep our lunches on Sundays. And so it's just really awesome to have a refrigerator full of lunches and kind of prepped food, so we don't have to worry about that for the week. So for us, goal setting is it's part of who we are. We're both really goal-oriented people, and we both love to be in on the other's dreams. So for us, it just comes natural, but for others, it may take some intentionality, which is totally fine, and it takes some work, and it might feel weird at first if you never paid attention to the work that your spouse was doing to all of a sudden show interest. But I would have grace for yourself and have grace for them if they're like, why are you all of a sudden interested in what I'm doing? If there's some pushback in that area, I would just say, hey, this is something that I would really love to learn more about and know more about in your life. And so also dream together. Dream about the future. What does your life look like when you're 80? Blake and I often talk about it because guess what? We have friends that are, we have a couple friends that are in their 70s, and they are just amazing people, and we just want to be like them. So we've just kind of cheated, and we just write down, we want our lives to look exactly like this couple. So no, but we do take time to say, what do we want to work towards? Because if you're not working towards anything, then the months and years can go by and you have nothing to show for it. And for me and Blake, we want to live a legacy. We want people to remember the things that we did for others. We want, first and foremost, we want to be remembered by the way that we showed Jesus to people. And so oftentimes our goals are set around business and ministry so that we can give and we can love well. Be a team. I think that it's so easy to start blaming each other when things get stressful, because when you get stressed, it's natural to just kind of self-protect, right? And so when we're in that mode, we just have to remember our issues are not our spouse. And once we start throwing the shots at them, the cheap shots, once we start blaming them for the reason why we have a stuffy nose, the reason why the fridge doesn't have food in it, the reason why the kid's going crazy, when we start blaming them for things that are really out of their control and out of our control, we stop being a team. And so get back on the same page and say, we are a team. And for me, that is something that Blake does really well, and I'm super thankful for, is sometimes he'll just look at me and be like, we are on the same team. When he sees the fight in my eyes, like I'm ready to go and I'm ready to put on my boxing gloves and fight, he really calms me down by says, Lex, we're on the same team. We're in this together. So instead of fighting each other, let's fight this, together. And so that is something it's noteworthy. And dreaming together and setting goals together, all those things that I just talked about. Forgive one another. It is so important to forgive. I can't tell you a time where Blake and I have fought more than, several hours. Honestly, we try not to. There's only been maybe 3 nights where we've gone to bed mad at each other, but overall, we do not go to bed mad at each other. And usually, sometimes when we do, still feel upset even though we've apologized, when we sleep on it, we feel better in the morning and we just kind of reboot. So it's okay if you still, even though you've forgiven your spouse and you go to bed still frustrated, give yourself some time to rest, sleep it off. And because there's nothing worse. I feel like going to bed is such a strange thing, right? Because you go to bed and you're already tired and you have the weight of the day on your shoulders or the weight of these issues on your shoulders, and you're thinking about those while you're going to bed. And then all of a sudden that's when it sparks some frustrations or conversations about things that you're mad about. And so I think the enemy really tries to use that against us in marriage, is when we're tired, when we're weak, when we're hungry. He likes to, lie to us and tell us that our spouse is the reason for all the issues. So be quick to forgive. I cannot stress this enough. And again, my husband, Blake, you're so good at this, honey. I know you're listening, and I'm so thankful for how patient you are and how forgiving you are and how humble. He's so willing to just say sorry, even when I've been such a pill. And so there's always one of those that just, wants to hold on. And then there's one that's just so gracious and loving and way more like Jesus. And I'm telling you, he's the Jesus out of the two of us. And I am constantly learning about the weight of my redemption through Jesus, through my husband. It's just, woo! I am sassy sometimes. So thank you, hubby, for being as good as you are. And kind of on that same vein of not going to bed angry, go to bed at the same time. I can only tell you a handful of times where Blake and I haven't done that, and it's been when there's a major sporting event on, or I've been working on my brand, maybe just a few times where he's put Bear to bed and I've stayed up working on some of my Instagram stuff and blah, blah, blah. And so I didn't realize this, but this is not a common thing for a lot of people, and I think that it should be a thing for everybody. I understand that sometimes you don't have the same working schedule, and if that's the case, then you cannot avoid it. But if it is up to you, go to bed at the same time. Have conversations with your spouse in bed. Make time for intimacy. There's just so many things and so many blessings that come along with going to bed at the same time. It doesn't leave room for temptation. If one is out on the couch with their phone and whatever the things are that pop up on your phone that leave you tempted, and one's in bed, it's just a great practice to go to bed at the same time. And this can't always happen, and I know it sounds idealistic, but for us it's been a huge blessing to be able to kind of be on the same page with that. And don't be afraid to ask for help around the house. For me, I know that Blake goes to work, so it is my responsibility to make sure the house is in shape and that I, provide for our son, provide the meals, but Blake also knows that I'm trying to build my dream as well. And so he's super gracious. And sometimes when I need help, I just ask for it. So don't be ashamed. Don't feel guilt or don't feel frustration towards yourself if you cannot do all the things that your house needs, especially the more kids you have, the more help you really need. So don't be afraid to ask for help. That's a humble thing to do. Be willing to do activities you don't love. For me, it's watching Kentucky basketball. When we were dating, I totally fooled my husband. I would send him texts of the score like, "Go Cats," and act like I was watching the game when really I just asked Siri what the score was, and it was total false advertisement, and he knows that. But this year, I'm really trying to put my phone down because I'll be on Facebook or Instagram, and he's watching the game, and then he'll be like, "Babe, did you see that?" And I am in the middle of reading something, so of course I didn't see that, and then I don't care to watch the replay. And so I've tried to put technology aside to be present with him and do this thing. And so I just tell you, if your husband likes to hike or your husband likes to watch sports or whatever the thing is that he just loves, and the same goes for you husbands if you're listening. For me, my husband knows the answer to this already, but I love eating out. And I don't just love to eat out at like casual places. That's fine most of the time. But sometimes I just want to be wined and dined for no reason. It's not my birthday. We're not celebrating anything, nothing. I just want to go to a fancy dinner. Okay? That's what I want. I know it makes me superficial, whatever names you want to put on it, but that's my thing. I'm not attached to shoes. I'm not a shopper. You know what I love? Food. I love good food. I got it from my mama. So, this is the thing. Oh, goodness. Whoa. Okay. Back on. My computer just went dark. I've been talking for too long, clearly. My computer was like doing the Grammy thing or the Oscar thing when it plays the music after someone's telling the long speech. Anyways, I will be wrapping it up shortly. So if you are tired of hearing what do's and don'ts I have of marriage, I'm coming to a close. Don't worry, computer and listener. Anyways, so yes, do the things that you don't love for the sake of your spouse and fall in love with those things. Like, I truly believe that if we put effort into liking the things that our spouse likes, we will find joy in it too, because, you married them and you love what they love, right? So, and then find your thing together. For us, it's hospitality. When we got married, we decided we wanted to host a weekly pizza night where old friends, new friends, strangers in the neighborhood, when we were just in the grocery store and we struck up a conversation with someone, we'd say, hey, come to pizza night. It was an open invite, and we loved just making homemade pizza with people and just enjoying community through just opening our doors. So for us, our gift and our love is hospitality. And I'm so thankful that we both enjoy it, because that can be a point of tension sometimes. But find your thing together, whether it's being outdoors, whether it's, photography, whether it's, going to every state in the next 2 years. I don't know what your thing is, but it's your thing. So do it, and do it with your spouse, and talk about how you're going to do it. I watched on, what was it? I was watching Wheel of Fortune, and they talked about, there was a couple that said their goal was to go to every MLB stadium. My little one just got back from a walk, to go to every MLB stadium in their lifetime together. So there's that. So, and last three, I guess, is be in community with other believers. I think this is so important, and it's so self-explanatory, so I won't go further, but whether it's a small group or a masterminds group or whatever the case may be that works for you, if it's a mom's group, if it's a couples group, be in community with believers. Do life with other believers, because when you're having frustrations in your marriage and then you hear someone else say, oh yeah, I deal with that too, then it becomes something humorous instead of something that is truly draining you. And I've had a friend that has actually told me that when she started hanging out with us, we just made some of the things that were frustrating about marriage normal. And so, be in community with other believers. And then, you want to be the best parent, be the best spouse. And so I think that oftentimes it's so easy to choose our kids because we have unconditional love for them from out of the gates. And it's just this thing that God gives us, a gift, and there's nothing that they can do to make us not love them. But our spouse is not like that, and we chose to love them. And so we have to keep choosing to love them. And the best thing we can do is, for our kids, is to love our spouse. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard that have, once their parents were empty nesters, they divorced because their life was their kids. And so try not to be that couple that puts everything into your kids, pour just as much, if not more, into your marriage. And then the last one, which I must have skipped over, is pray together, serve the kingdom together. Blake and I pray every night together over our friends, over our family, over our health, over our baby that's cooking in there, Blakely Ray. We pray through everything, we talk about everything, and we also are taking steps towards being more kingdom-minded in the way that we give. And so if you're serving the Lord together, it's really hard to have a crummy marriage. So do those things, serve God, be the hands and feet of Jesus, be hospitable, whether it's, being a part of a small group or hosting a small group, whatever that looks like for you, just dive in head first and do it with your spouse. Ask them. And one really great resource is if you look up the girl that started Cultivate What Matters Power Sheets, they have a couples book, and I get it it's $12. I get it for almost everybody when they get married. It's just a goal setting couples workbook, and it takes a couple of hours to complete, and then it asks you to set a date 3 months from that time to look back on your goals, and it's just a great way to connect. And so that is a great resource if you're willing to spend $12. And then also on my email list, if you shoot me an email, lexibozarth at gmail.com, or if you sign up at lexibozarth.com, or if you're on Instagram, you can link tree it, all those things. There's tons of ways to find me. I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to encourage you. And I'm so thankful that you tuned in, and I'm so thankful that you're taking the steps to, better your marriage. So I just want to close in prayer. Father God, thank you so much for marriage. Thank you for the covenant that you have put together between this woman and this man, that they're together because of you. And I just pray over their marriage. I pray over the steps that they're going to take to strengthen their marriage. And I just pray that they would have an adventurous marriage full of love, full of laughter, and full of being your hands and feet to this broken world. So, Lord, just pray that anyone listening to this would just feel so encouraged, so loved, and that if anyone just feels that nudge, that they would reach out to me and that I would be able to encourage them. Lord, thank you for marriage. Thank you for your son. We love you. Amen. All right, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. This ended up being longer than I anticipated, but I guess it's because I'm fired up about marriage, okay? So, how do I usually end? You are infinitely valuable. You were created with a unique set of gifts, skills, and talents created by God for His purpose and His glory. So go and be His hands and feet to this broken world. Get it, girl. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. If this message has encouraged you, then please click to subscribe and share with a friend who may be inspired by the message. Also, if you have an event coming up and you're looking for a speaker, click the link below to get in touch with me.